Well, good afternoon, everybody. How are you doing today? Paul Turner here from the discipleproject.net, here with another office hours for you, and here to answer four. Today is going to be 4 youth ministry questions for you today. One of them is a special question. I'll tell you why in a little while. But I'm glad to welcome you in, and for those that may be new, first of all, thank you for checking out the video and joining me for a little while. I do this every Wednesday. So I do office hours every Wednesday, 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, and so that I can be able to answer questions for youth pastors so I can help you build a successful youth ministry. That's what I want to do. It's what I want to do. I want to help you in those questions that sometimes that don't get answered in various places. I like to deal with sometimes very not peculiar, but just maybe not often asked questions that I think are the nuanced questions that a lot of youth pastors ask. And you know, there's just not a lot of people covering those, and I want to be able to cover those questions here for you today and every Wednesday. And if you're jumping in, I would love to hear from you. Where are you from? Where are you watching from? I would love to know that, so just drop that in the comments. And if you have a question, of course, please do so. I ask these questions that I get are before the show and all that. But if you have a question on your mind during the show and while I'm doing this, then please drop it in the chat, and I will answer your question. So once again, just a reminder, my name is Paul Turner from the discipleproject.net. If you go visit the website, you can always go over there and check out all the blog posts. I have over 1,200 blog posts on youth ministry. So if you want to do a little bit of extra reading, you can do that. You can find videos. You can find all kinds of good stuff over there. So if you want to just go visit that and find out more about what I do and why I do it, well, that information is all over there. And then you can also go check out gumroad.com/youthmenresources. That is my store, and you can always check that out. There'll be links down in the doobly-doo there for when you want to go visit and say you want to go find a series or you want to find a resource or something like that. Well, then those are there as well, and it's a great way to support the channel, and I hope you'll do that. So today, first question. Let's go ahead and jump into the first question today. I know I jumped on a little bit late, so I want to go ahead and be careful with your time. You may have just segmented time here, and I want to make sure that I cover that for you in quick fashion, because you may have to go somewhere and do something. And it's Wednesday night. You don't have all day to watch videos, do you? So I want to make sure I'm answering your question, if I may do that. So I'll kick it off with a good one here today. Today's first question brought to you by a brand new series I have called Baby Steps, Growing Up in Your Faith, 3 weeks of spiritual formation lessons. Basically, I use the growing up, starting from a baby, moving to a toddler, and then into those middle years, and talk about spiritual growth and how your students and how you can teach your students to grow spiritually in baby steps. That's the goal, right? Baby steps. They don't have to grow all at once. That's silly. Nobody grows all at once. It's all about baby steps and taking baby steps. So if you are interested in a new series, that link will be down below, or it's there right now. You can always go there and check it out at gumroad.com/youthmenresources if you don't want to wait. But you can check out after the video. The link will be down in the sources there, in the doobly-doo down there. So, and today's first question is: how do you deal with that one student that's driving away other students? Well, I'll say this: it's a good question, because I know that these things are always sticky. These are sticky questions. Because you're not just dealing with students, you're dealing with parents, you're dealing with possibly political issues, depending who that one child is related to. And so when you're having to look at this, I think you have to look at it from a couple of different angles. and not having any context. I don't know who the student is or as to why people are leaving. I don't know what it is. It could be a behavior issue. And if it's a behavior issue where the one student is either so rambunctious, disrespectful, causing chaos, and doesn't want to listen and is there to make trouble, then the one student you have to deal with, because you can't lose the whole group for the sake of the one, unless, and I'll get to this in a second, but you can't lose the whole group for the one. If it does, there's another part of that too. Is the student a part of your church? Is the student, there because they came from an outreach, or they're from down the block or something like that, and they're not related to anybody in the church, and they're just there to, like I said, cause trouble or be a problem. Well, it's a little bit easier to handle in the sense of saying, look, every discipline problem is a discipleship moment. Okay? Let me say that again. Every discipline problem is a discipleship moment. Now, if this young man, the other, dynamic of this is, does the young man know Christ or not know Christ? And so if this young man or woman who is the problem, if they don't know Christ, well, it's a great opportunity to introduce them to Jesus. And if they don't want Jesus, then say, hey, listen, man, I appreciate you being here. I appreciate you checking out the group. I like you. You're a good person. But you're causing some chaos. It's not gonna happen. It's just not gonna be welcome here, because we're trying to do a thing here. We're trying to disciple young people who want to follow Jesus. And if you are so desperate not to follow Jesus, then maybe being in this youth group right now is not for you. It's not where you want to be, because it's too much for you, or you don't understand the dynamics of what we're trying to do. And listen, it's not your fault. You're not used to church. You're not used to being in this type of environment. You're not used to being here. And so I get that. So maybe take some time off and then come back when you're ready, because I'll always save you a seat. That would be my speech in that regard to somebody who is in a group whom students are what I want to say, they're pushing back from, because they don't like the fact that this person is causing chaos, because they just don't understand the program. They're not saved, and those things. Now, that being said, I would, and if it's, once again, it's not to justify the actions or anything like that, but it's a good opportunity to educate people, students in your youth group, that there'll always be people coming into the youth group who don't know Jesus, and that this is not a club. This is not a private club that people join. This is as they say, it's not a club, for the well. It's a hospital for the sick, and we have to. Each of us take on the roles of, not necessarily doctors or nurses, but at least interns who are trying to help those who are trying to find hope in their lives. And so my caveat then would be, are these students who are leaving because of the one student, are they leaving because, once again, if it's behavioral and it's a risk or a danger to people, 100%. Gotta take care of that. You can't have that be in your group. If the reason students are leaving are because they simply don't want to associate with a student, because they don't like them, because they think they don't fit quite well, they're not a behavior issue, those types of things, then once again, there's some education that has to happen there. Is that these, I would have conversations with those students to find out why they're going, why they're leaving. Is it because they don't feel safe? Is it because, and allow them to share with me those things. So I'm trying to, I would try to get both sides of the story. I had a situation one time for my youth group where there was a thing with two young ladies. They didn't like each other. And I asked one of the young ladies who had a problem, I said, would you be willing to sit down with me and the other young lady and work it out? Well, the one young lady said, no, I don't want to do that. I want you to tell this girl to leave or get out. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to tell her to do that. She says, well, then I'm going to have to leave. I went, okay. I said, I completely understand that. I totally understand why you want to do that. I just think it's immature. I think it's, and this is somebody I knew fairly well, somebody I felt I could talk plainly with, and did so. And so if I find that students are leaving because of their immaturity, not necessarily the person that's there, but because of their immaturity, then I'm going to have a different take on it. And I'm going to have to talk to parents and talk to other people. And you want to keep the group as cohesive as possible. You want to do that. But, people be people. People are going to people. they're going to they're going to be who they're going to be. And you can't contain that. It's no different, because if you don't handle those types of situations when they're young, that when they get older, they'll start doing that nonsense, right? What do you do when people leave church? Adults who leave church because they don't want to associate with somebody. You have a conversation with them, but they're adults, and they're going to do, you want to try to keep an adult congregation whole and all that, but sometimes you can't do that, because sometimes the people who are, some people are, hey, Ryan Latham, how are you, buddy? Good to see you. Some people are either the person who is driving other students away is immature, which then becomes an opportunity for discipleship, or the people who are leaving your youth group are the ones who are immature, and they need help, and they need some information, or they need to be educated more about how to deal with certain people. So if the people are leaving, they're immature because they don't know how to handle something, well, then that's another conversation. It's another opportunity for discipleship. So no matter which way you look at it, it is an opportunity for discipleship. But these things are going to happen, and you have to be able to look at it from both sides, and then you have to make the right choice. You have to, based on the information that you have. And it's never easy. It's never easy. You never look good, by the way. You'll never look good doing it. Discipleship is super unsexy. Right? You look great when kids are at the altar and those things, but you look like a jerk when you have to do actual work like discipleship and discipline. So you're not going to win. You're going to lose with somebody. So you just got to deal with it. You go on. Life goes on. All right. So how about we move on then to... Let's move on to question number dos. Let's go to question number dos today. This question is brought to you by this Thanksgiving reading I have. That it's a responsive reading. So if you're looking for something for Thanksgiving, so a way for your students to participate in worship. I hear a lot of times that, that youth pastors who don't have bands don't know how to worship. Well, can I tell you, responsive reading is a form and an act of worship, because you're inviting students, not necessarily to sing, but to speak, and to speak words, and to glorify God through the reading part. And so I would encourage you that if you don't have a band, or even if you do and you want to do something, well, then I do Psalm 100 here and Psalm 100 right here. I have two versions of it. I have a traditional version where it's very straightforward, but then I also have kind of a humorous one. And so I put a humorous reading in there as well, based on the same scripture. You could do them at both ends. You could put them, the serious one during worship, and then maybe close with that if you're talking about Thanksgiving or something of that nature that would allow you to do that at the end. And all you have to do for this, if you want this is free. You can just drop and get my newsletter, which is the Youth Ministry Roundup newsletter. And if you want that, it's free. There'll be a link down below that you can get it. And once again, you're not just going to get that, because if you stay on the mailing list, you're going to get free resources. You're going to get videos, articles, playlists, all kinds of things that I put together. stuff that I'm putting on with my youth group. Sometimes you get kind of behind the scene photo stuff. So you want to be a part of the newsletter because it is jam-packed with all the resources you need. So Thanksgiving reading, Psalm 100, check it out. It'll be in the links below. Question number 2. How do you avoid youth ministry burnout? How do you avoid youth ministry burnout? Boy, I don't know. I say this with all seriousness. I don't know if you can completely avoid youth. Now, can you avoid detrimental burnout? I think yes, you can. But I think there's always the fringes of it that cling to our, skin sometimes because, first of all, I think you have to decide what burnout is. Burnout isn't just being tired. Burnout isn't just having a bad day. Burnout isn't, just not feeling it today. Burnout is a lot of things. Burnout is a total lack of inspiration, a total lack of, I don't want to do this anymore. You're looking at other options. You're updating your resume. You don't want to show up for youth. You don't want to go to church. There's a lot of things to that. So can you avoid that whole thing? You can. So how do you do that? Well, I think you start with recognizing the rhythms of your life. You start recognizing your rhythms. You know where you are too busy. You know where you're doing too much. And I think you have to start with saying no more often. You say no. Because if you're the type of person who is adding things to their plate all the time, for whatever reason, sometimes you do it because your boss tells you to. Sometimes you do it because you want to feel validated. Sometimes you do it because you're a good person and you want to serve. But sometimes you just have to say no. That I can't do that. And if you know the rhythms of your life, and you know that if you take on too much, eventually it's going to just descend. You're eventually going to feel like you can't do anymore, and then eventually you don't want to do anything. And so if you want to avoid youth ministry burnout, I think you have to start with saying no. Saying no to all these other assignments, saying no to a lot of other things. You have to put order to your life. You have to be able to put your personal time with the Lord first. Of course, this is to assume that you're praying. This is to assume that you are worshiping. This is to assume that you're reading your Bible and that your relationship with God is good. And your relationship with God can be good, and still you can have some burnout. Your soul can be great, but you're looking at around you and everything else is just burning and chaos. And you're like, well, I don't want to do this anymore. And it eventually takes a toll on your life. So I'd say the first thing you have to do is look at the rhythms of your life and guard against the things that are causing the burnout. If you're doing too much and your pastor's putting too much on you, then that becomes a conversation you need to have. Say, look, this is too much for me. I can't do that. You say, but Paul, that's my job. I have to do that. Well, then you're eventually going to say, I'm going to need another job. So deal with it up front. Be honest with it up front and say, I have to be aware of this. I have to be aware when I start to smell smoke, fire is not far behind. So you know your life. And when you go, hey, what does that smell? Oh, that's burnout. I need to back away. I need to say I'm going down a wrong hole here. I'm going down a different direction that I really don't want to go. So know the rhythms of your life. Say no more often. And I would say that you have to have a life outside the church. A lot of times burnout happens because all you know is youth ministry. All you know is Wednesday to Wednesday, Sunday to Sunday. And if you have a family, you're at home and you start thinking, is this all there is? Is this all there is to my life? It's just work and go home? And it's no different from any other profession. You have to find a way to build a life outside of your job. Now, if you have one of those jobs where all your friends are there, at your job, and you guys go out to, eat or go for a drink after work, or a lot of those things, well, then, you might enjoy that, and maybe you're not going to have burnout. But I can tell you this, that in the church is a different kind of environment where you're not always going to go out to eat with people, or you're not always going to have strong, tight friendships as a staff member. And this is very common. You're not going to have those strong, tight because of the dynamics that you're working in. And that is when loneliness sets in. That's where you start feeling like you are out there somewhere. It feels like you are alone. And then you're just working harder. You're throwing yourself into more work to somehow either validate your life or your calling or those things. And so you have to find a life outside. You need to get a hobby. You need to do something. Start a YouTube channel. Start a podcast. Travel more. Take your days off is another thing. If you have days off, don't go to the office. Don't work on anything youth ministry related. Don't work on anything ministry related. Go do something else. Do the things you love. I love to go to the movies, so I'm going to go hide out at the movies. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go hide out at the movies, and I am going to stay there all day. Maybe I'll do a double feature. Maybe I'll do a triple feature, depending how I'm feeling. But I'm going to go and just say, hey, I got to go do some other things. I have some other hobbies. I have some other things to divert my attention away from the thing that is burning me out. And so that is what I would say. I would say, number one, know the rhythms of your life. Stay away from things that bog you down. Number two, say no more often. Say no to things. Get some stuff off your plate. Delegate to people, or just say no, or just recommend that for somebody else. Don't fill up on all these things thinking you have unlimited energy. You don't. And then the third thing is have a life outside the church. Have a life outside the church. Because if you don't, you're going to find yourself not just with smoke, but with fire. And it's just not going to be pretty. I've suffered from it. I have dealt with it. And there's just some things that you just got to deal with. And you got to be able to work through it. And in its final stages, if you feel like now you're at the cliff, you're there, think about things like counseling and therapy. Take some time to talk to somebody that doesn't know you very well and let them come in with some suggestions for your life. Allow somebody to speak into your life. You don't have it all under control. And it's okay that you're not okay. And you can go to a counselor and don't go to counselors in your own church. I wouldn't even let anybody counsel, get them out of state. I have friends out of state I talk to about issues because I don't want them to run into anybody that I know. So whether it's therapy, whether it's just talking to somebody, whatever it is, talk to somebody and then get healthy. Get healthy again. So that's what I say about those things. Be sure to leave me some comments down below about any of these questions, about dealing with students, dealing with, burnout. Be sure to leave your comments down below. I'd love to hear your suggestions as well. So I'm going to jump, and I'm going to go to question number 3 here. Hello, Nate Jacobs. I'm going to jump into this question, and then I'll jump in with the other questions I have. So Nate is asking the question, Paul, is it okay to have students take a survey about the things they have questions about with God to get an idea on where they are spiritually so I know what to teach on? Is that an okay idea? It's an absolutely okay idea. 100%, Nate. Absolutely. I used to just do an index card, and I would say, write down one thing that you would like me to talk about, that you don't understand about God. Now, you can do a survey. If they already know, then they can write that down. I probably assume that kids already knew. And so, but if you want a more detailed survey, I would make it maybe, consider the time that you have them. Make it between, depending how many students you have, make it 10 things there, right? If it's multiple choice or something like that. If it's just straight write it out, well, you could do that as well. But, you can simplify it. If the kids already know, then have them write it on an index card, you think. Or if you want to do a survey, whether it's multiple choice or something like that, then you can do that. You can be true or false. But if you want answers, then obviously you want them to be able to fill it out. Maybe if the question is, what would you like to know more about the book of Revelation? What would you like to know more about the Bible? What would you like to know more about the church? Or what are the questions that you think about more often when it comes to whatever? And you can make it shorter than that. I am making it longer than it should be. But sure, absolutely. And the new year's coming up, so and I'm doing this with my students. I'm asking them, and I ask them every week now for past probably 2 or 3 weeks. I say, hey, look, put some down on the list here that you would like me to answer, and they've given me one thing. So I got to work a little harder at mining their brains a little bit as to what they like to know. And once again, what they want to know now is not what they're going to want to know a year from now, or a month from now, or a day from now. So the thing they tell you, you're just going to have to stick with it, because they're going to tell you this. And when you're ready to teach it a month from now or 2 months, their mind has maybe gone off that subject. Maybe. Some of them, it may stick with them, but you can't switch gears. You just got to go ahead and do the thing and say, hey, this was something that was recommended, and I'm going to go ahead and teach on it. And you may teach on it once, and then you're done. If you feel like you're going to do 2 weeks or 3 weeks, gauge it from there. And maybe you just kind of dump if they're related, you could do, all the questions in one lesson, depending how you want to do it. But I hope that helps Nate, that yes, a survey is a very good idea. A survey is something great, especially towards the end of the year. So that is question number 3. And by the way, since we're talking about that, I think I might do that. It's a good idea, Nate. I think I'm going to put that. This is this year's My Youth Ministry Playbook. Playbook 2024 is coming out before Thanksgiving. And so I'm going to make a note of that. Nate. I'm just going to write this down right now. Let's see here. Where's my pens? I'm going to reach over here. And I'm going to put survey. Because I think good surveys, if I put it in there, youth pastors may use them. So a youth ministry survey as to what they would like. And I think a couple of different surveys. Surveys could be about teaching. Surveys could be about, what you want to learn. Surveys can be about various things. So I think a good survey in there might be of good use to a youth pastor. So well done, Nate. Thanks for the idea. So let's move on then with, let's see. You got that right, Nate. I got my playbook. I am running plays, my friend. I'm running plays. And go Giants. I'm a New York Giants fan, so they're not very good this season, let me just say that, but I am sort of kind of rooting for them. Yay, go Giants. All right, let's move on to question number 4. And this question, let's see, where are we at here? Question number 4. Brought to you by Coaching. That's right. I have a coaching service. If you are interested in coaching, New Year's coming up. And you may say, Paul, this year was not quite what I wanted. I don't feel like I grew the way I wanted to grow. Well, what is that missing element? What is that dynamic that do you think will propel you? And I would say consider coaching. Why? Because you're going to get one-on-one talking, sharing, face-to-face, screen-to-screen, and you're going to be like, well, this is totally different. I have somebody to actually talk to. I have somebody to actually bounce ideas off of. I actually have somebody that I can help plan, right? It's a 3-month plan. It's a 3-month coaching journey that we go on, because I believe 3 months is a sufficient amount of time for you to start to detect that you are actually putting and implementing the things that I am teaching you to do. And then you can gauge, and when you come back to me and say, oh, feedback, right? How many times do you need feedback about what you're doing? And sometimes it's not very constructive feedback. Sometimes it's useless feedback. And so in having somebody that you can come back and forth with twice a month for 3 months, 90-minute meetings, We sit, we talk, and that 90 minutes is, use as much of it or as little as you want. I'm scheduling 90 minutes. You can use whatever time you need to use, and I'll work with your schedule. But I would encourage you that if 2023 was not what you wanted it to be, and you're saying, well, what's the difference, Paul? What can be the game changer? Since we're talking about playbooks, what can be the game changer for my ministry in 2024? I would say it's coaching, because you're going to have somebody like myself who's going to be in your corner, who's going to be rooting you on. There, you will know beyond a shadow of a doubt, if nobody else is rooting for you, I am rooting for you. I am helping you. Your success is my success. Me helping you be successful is the goal. I want you to build a successful youth ministry. Yes. Do I want you to be whole and healthy in the process of that building? Yes, I do. And I'm going to prioritize your health over the busyness of your schedule. Because if you're not well, if you're not successful within yourself, the chances of your youth ministry flourishing. If you're not flourishing, I'm going to say that your youth ministry is not going to be flourishing the way you want it to be. So that is my encouragement to you, is consider coaching. Check it out. Links will be down in the doobly-doo. Check it out and see if it can be for you for 2024. Okay? Let's move on to question number 4. Question number 4. What are you doing? What are you doing to help students use their gifts and abilities other than worship music? This is a fantastic question, because so many times we look at musicians or singers, and it should not be this way, as this kind of top tier talent, that if you can sing or play an instrument, that makes you somehow more valuable. And I'm not saying you're thinking this. I'm just saying there's a general thread that kind of runs through this, is that either you think they're of more value to some way into the ministry than other gifts, talents, and abilities, or it's just the fact that that other gifts, talents, and abilities are being sidelined for the sake of those who have these gifts and abilities. And once again, I love people who can sing, play guitar. We had, in the last church I was at, we had a flourishing band. Yes, we had people kind of come in, come out, but we always had people that wanted to get up and sing. We always wanted to, and they could sing. Once again, not everybody who wants to sing, can sing, and you have to watch out for that. But you can. But I had diversified my portfolio, if you want to call it that. I diversified because I was always looking for kids of what they loved and how it could contribute to the whole of the group. I think about, New Testament church. I think about Acts chapter 2, where they all gathered together and they brought what they could bring. They brought food, or they brought a song or a hymn, or they brought something to that. And that's always been kind of my template for how I include students, especially students whom you would think doesn't fit anywhere else. There's kids in your group that can do graphics. They can do your slides. There are kids who can do, they can speak. One of my thing is I love helping students communicate their faith. So I have students who, share the devotion for the night. That's their gift. That's their talent. They do that. And not only have they done it for me, but then I had one young lady who spoke in our group, and then the women's ministry asked her to speak. So she's had 2 opportunities in 2 different ministries within the span of a month. And so when I'm looking for students, I always tell these stories because I think we don't understand we don't understand that there are kids in our group who do have talent. I had a kid who wrote poetry. I had a kid who rapped. I had kids who were great at decorating the room. These are all gifts, talents, and abilities that there's things that you're doing as a youth pastor that you don't have to do. You could ask and see if they are willing to do it. They have to be willing to do it. They have to have the gift or the talent to do it. But there are many ways to include a student to use their gifts other than worship, singing, those type of things. Running the computer, running the sound, greeting people. I mean, there's a long list of things. In fact, I'm going to put a list, and hopefully I can turn it into a PDF of things. I want to expand a little bit, but I'm going to put a link down below to, I think it's 31 roles and responsibilities students can have in your youth group. And so if you want that, I'm going to put it down there. It may be a PDF. I'm going to maybe see if I can expand some ideas on this, because I think it's super important that we think outside the box and think outside of just who can get up front or who can do this, and be able to expand your portfolio, that when you look at your youth group, that there are people in your youth ministry who can do more than what you think they can do. It's just a matter of you asking good questions and finding out what you need. What do you need? Well, I need somebody to do slides, or I want somebody to share, or I want, it depends what kind of church you have. I know we talk about in the terms of these other abilities, but I am in a Pentecostal church, and so I believe in the gifts of the Spirit. And gifts of the Spirit, for me, is I encourage students to use those things. I had we don't use it anymore, but when I first started, I used a journal that says, if you feel like the Lord is speaking to you, if you feel like the Lord's put something on your heart that would be encouraging to other people, then I want you to come up here and write it down in this book. And then I'll give you the option at the end of the service, or at the end of the message, or end of the prayer time, to read it yourself, or if you give me permission, I'll read it. And if you don't give permission either way, or you don't want to read it, then students can come up and read it for themselves. So why do I do that? Because there are gifts going on that I'm unaware of. And unless I create an opportunity for that gift to come out, I will forever be in the dark, and I won't know that's there. So I think there's the natural gifts, talents, and abilities, those things, stuff you're good at. But I also think I also believe in the gifts of the Spirit, like hospitality, or administration, or preaching, or any of those things, or prophetic words. I believe those things. And so I give students opportunities to participate in that, and allow the Spirit to do some things that I can't do, to reveal things that I can't reveal. And so I trust that the Lord is good, and the Lord is going to, do what he wants to do in our midst. And I allow students and give them the opportunity to do those things. And so I would encourage you that if you're looking to get students more involved, I would ask good questions, find out what you need, and start creating opportunities. Ask people, would you try this for a month? Would you give this a shot? I sense that you have some really good skills in this area. Could you do that? Could you record my messages with your phone? Could you set up a little stand and record these? Can you edit video? Can you do social media? How good are you at that? Tons of jobs. And in fact, I believe my 31 is in this book. So you can always get the playbook, because I believe that's going to be in there as well as some other student leadership type things that I put in there, because I think that's super, super important. So hopefully that answers your question as to gifts, talents, and abilities, and how to use students for more than just for singing and playing instruments, which, by the way, are critically important. And I would say this, they're instruments your kids play that they'll never play in the band. So they play the clarinet or the French horn or something like that. Not that they can't be in the band. It maybe doesn't fit into the format. But I would say this, why can't they do a solo? Why can't they do the offertory? Why can't they just share a song? I have a young man who plays saxophone. And one week I had him play Amazing Grace, I think. So, just because he could. Why not? Why not? Those kids get to shine, and they will remember that for the rest of their lives, that they did something to contribute rather than being consumers. I'm trying to help create creators, people who are trying to add value and bring what God has gifted with them to the table, so that we are not just a group of just 2 or 3 or 4 people who make something happen, but everybody can bring something to the potluck supper, if you will. So hopefully that was helpful. It's one of my passions to talk about. One of my passions. All right, let's go on to question number 5. And this will be our last question of the day. Thank you so much for all of you for hanging out with me. Like I said, I'm going on to question number 5. If you're just jumping in here and you're wondering what's going on, my name is Paul Turner from thediscipleproject.net, and I answer youth pastor questions every Wednesday, 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. It's called Office Hours. So if you have a question and you're watching this in the future, be sure to go ahead and leave your questions down below, and I will use them in a future, I'll answer them in a future episode. Okay? So be sure to do that. All right, let's go ahead and jump down here to question number 5. Oops, let's go. Sorry, I've already answered that one. Don't answer that one again, Paul. Now, here's the question. This is from one of my students, because I told him I would answer the question. And it's interesting that he asked this question. I believe he asked it a week and a half ago. And he says, Paul, how do you start a Bible study at school? So, Dawson, I will answer your question. Even though you've already started a Bible club at school, you didn't need me to answer that question. You've already just started it. But I will say that Dawson has started the Bible club. It's a simple thing. He texted me and he says, he shows me a conversation he's having. And he says, how about you just he asked several people who wanted to be part of the Bible study, as I remember it, and said, just bring a Bible verse you know and read it and share what it means to you. It's pretty simple. And they do it at lunch, I believe. It's just a lunchtime Bible study, a group of students who gather together and says, we want to talk about things in the Bible. We want to talk about what the Bible means. We want to talk about how can we encourage one another? How can we share faith with one another in a place that is not faith-driven? And yet these believers are being drawn together because they want to nourish one another's soul. They want to share with one another something that's important to them. They want to help one another and get help from somebody's, sharing the verse with them. And so I would say it doesn't take much to start a Bible study. It just says, hey, do you want to get together and talk about the Bible? Bring a Bible verse. Or let's just read 5 verses or a chapter together, or, talk, if it's a student who may be watching this, then saying, hey, ask your youth pastor to just come up with, a book you can use, or, questions you can use. But I like the way Dawson's doing it because it's very natural. It doesn't have to look like I don't know what this is, but a professional Bible study. Whatever you think Bible study is, it doesn't have to be professional looking. It can be like, hey, bring a verse that you don't understand. Ask a question you don't understand about the Bible, and maybe we'll just look it up together. We have phones with us, right? We can just go ahead and look it up, and let's talk about it. So I don't think it has to be super complicated where everybody brings, their, huge, thick King James Bible with them, and they have a little book and a notebook, which notebooks are fine. Notebooks are good. Take some notes. They're at school. They have pens. They can take notes on their phone, whatever they want to do. But I don't think it's very complicated. And I think Dawson just showed that, how uncomplicated it is. Do you want to talk about the Bible at lunch? Great. You got a Bible study. It's really easy. We talk about, and then you have other dynamics you think about, right? How big do you want it to be? It doesn't have to be very big. In fact, I wouldn't encourage it to be very big in the sense of you're having it at lunch, because then a Bible study turns into one person talking to a group of people. That's a different dynamic than a Bible study where it's a group of 4 or 5 friends who want to talk about things in the Bible that they do understand, don't understand. They read something and they want to encourage somebody. The dynamics are very different in that. And sometimes when if you grow this Bible study, well, then it changes the dynamics of really what you wanted in the first place. So I would say, Dawson, be careful, because if it gets bigger, what happens if it gets bigger? You say, well, that's great. Maybe it is. Maybe it's not, but it changes. It changes the dynamics of what you're trying to do. Maybe it's about launching. Maybe one of your friends in your group of 5, maybe you have 5 in your group and somebody else has 5 in their group at lunch. Maybe every lunch table has a Bible study group, right? I mean, the potential is there, but everything doesn't have to look. Everything doesn't have to look the same. It doesn't have to look professional. It doesn't have to look so hip and cool. I don't think first century Bible study was hip and cool. I just don't. I just think it was just honest people getting together who didn't understand stuff. Can we talk about this? Great, let's talk about that. And we work through it, just like we do in Sunday school. We're just working through a book of the Bible. I read a couple of verses, we ask questions, we dive into why that is, we look at the context, we look at those things, and we go from there. And if you have a Bible study at school, sometimes it's not a professional Sunday school class where we're going to maybe dive that deep unless you have a book to do so. But don't worry about it. You're starting where you're starting. And don't worry about it. Just bring those simple questions that you have and look at the Bible together. However that looks, right? Just whatever, a group of teenagers sitting around talking about the Bible, whatever that looks like, you're having Bible study. So kudos to you, Dawson, for starting the Bible study. And I'm praying that it goes well and that the people that you're going to talk to are going to be receptive. And they're going to be there, and you're going to encourage them, but they're also going to encourage you, and that your year will look very different than how it started. And the people who show up at that lunch table every week for this Bible study will change, but everybody that comes in will get something, and they'll be different when they leave. And maybe they come back after a few weeks. So don't judge your study by its attendance. Don't judge it by how professional it looks or how good or bad you think you lead. Just sit around, pray, and always pray as part of your Bible study. Pray for that God would show you as a group. Help us, Lord. Help us to discover. Help us to decipher this. Help us to understand. And if you'll do that, if you're getting together and reading God's Word and praying at lunch, you got a Bible study, guys. So well done. Good for you. Good for you. And that is it for today, everybody. So great session. Great office hours today. Great questions. So I want to thank you guys so much for joining and being a part today. Don't forget, jump over there to thediscipleproject.net if you want more information about what I do and why I do it. Lots of resources there, over 1,200 blog posts. You can sign up for the newsletter, all that good stuff there. And then, of course, if you wish to get a resource, well, you can go to gumroad.com/youthmenresources. There'll be links to all the things that I talked about today down in the doobly-doo. And these videos will make their way back into the YouTube universe as I chop them up and turn them into smaller episodes. So be on the lookout for that. But that is it for today, everybody. Thank you so much for joining. Thanks for being a part today. Appreciate Nate and Ryan jumping in today and just saying hello. And hope to catch you guys next Wednesday, 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. And we will see you guys then. All right? Have a good week, everybody. And have a great youth meeting tonight if you're meeting tonight. We'll talk to you later.